Welcome back, Alphas. So far, we've talked about the major flight mechanic changes coming in Star Citizen 3.5 at the end of March 2019. And we've discussed the first two of the three upcoming basic combat flight styles. In this video, we'll cover the third style, atmospheric flight combat. So pilots, hold course. The third basic combat flight style is the World War II style of aerial combat. Dogfighting, bombers, fighters trying to take out bombers, stuff like that. What's very important to point out is that this style of flight combat will not take place in space, it will only take place in atmosphere. And it will even feel different based on where you are in the atmosphere. For example, less atmosphere means less lift, and so the ships with delta-shaped wings will fare better in atmosphere than ships with asymmetrical wings, or very little wingspan relative to the size of the ship. Those ships are going to have to rely on their VTOL thrusters. Plus, in atmosphere and gravity like Earth's, when a plane goes straight up, it loses speed as it fights gravity, hits thinner atmosphere, and eventually stalls. Though I'm sure our futuristic Star Citizen ships will be less affected by these forces than, of course, World War II planes. Especially since the modern F-22 Raptor has ridiculous upward vertical thrust through thrust vectoring, or TVC as they call it, and unbelievable control during stalls. Like, even with today's tech. So it'll be interesting to see how much the in-game gravity and atmosphere thickness affect our 30th century ships during in-atmosphere dogfights. However, it is notable that many traditional flight combat maneuvers will still be viable in the verse, just as they were back in World War II. So two main ways to gain advantage over your opponent in a dogfight. Get behind them or get above them. Experienced pilots will always be looking to get on your six or dunk you from above. So watching two pilots sparring in the skies often ends up in an airball, keeping proximity as they both run circular patterns vying for position until one breaks off or finally loses their angle and gets shot down. Of the two ships, the ship with the smaller turning radius will actually have the advantage in atmosphere. Tighter turns gives you the inside track when circling each other, and it helps you get a clear shot from behind your opponent. Strafe fighting in atmosphere will likely not be a thing, holding to the flight model of World War II style. Gameplay programmer David Coulson described the in-atmosphere flight model for main thruster-centric ships to have a lot of forward movement with an enormous amount of vertical turning acceleration, with practically no slide in vertical. So I hope he means the Gladius would move like the F-22, with added 30th century maneuvering thrusters. Strafing in atmosphere with ships like the Gladius or Hornet will not really be possible, because the drag on the tail will actually pull the ship back into the airflow. You'll be able to feel the ship pull as it straightens back out, as it moves forward through the atmosphere. To match the visuals of our main thruster-centric ships, the main thruster is the most powerful in these ships, with less powerful maneuvering thrusters, and thus that feel. For longer, yet more epic dogfights than ever before, in both atmosphere and in space, time to disable will be a thing. It should take a little work to take someone out, unless the defender was completely unprepared. Remember, we're supposed to have like permadeath and things, so it should take a little work. The first version of system sub-targeting is already in-game, like hitting left alt plus T to target your enemy's engines. As more systems come online that we can target, each one is going to open the door to more planned combat, with tactical decisions becoming more and more important than just who to focus fire. When you really think about it, this is the first cornerstone to building a proper bounty hunting system and sanctioning by mechanics for piracy to be an occupational choice. Bounty hunting missions would call for disabling engines and shields, locking a missile, and demanding your bounty surrender. Then you and your pals can board the wanted guy's ship. Going deeper down the rabbit hole, system sub-targeting is what will allow many ships to actually finally become relevant. Think Avenger Stalker, Hawk, Cutlass Blue once in-game. To allow for this level of ship-to-ship combat, time to kill will drastically be increased, allowing room for more meaningful and longer-lasting multi-crew gameplay in dogfights. Now, I'm not sure if that means they're planning on buffing ship armor, creating more maneuver-based dogfighting, or changing how the ship's hit points are divided. I honestly do not know. Any ideas? School us in the comments below. Lastly, let's touch on the two remaining flight models, capital ships and Gravlev vehicles. Capital ships will obviously have huge mass and therefore very slow acceleration. All that mass means that their momentum will be strong once moving and will require very large distances to stop, especially in atmosphere. So much so that certain capital ships, like say the Javelin, would be unable to escape atmosphere if it enters, as gravity pulls so hard on the ship and its VTOL are so comparatively weak that if a Javelin is forced into the atmosphere, it's going down and becoming the latest derelict to explore. And strong VTOL thrusters will be the only way you'll be able to get a massive ship back out of atmosphere. It's worth mentioning that we're not only referring to ships with big thrusters that turn when in landing mode, like the Cuddy or Valkyrie. That's just how some ships' VTOL are placed and deployed. Other ships like the Starfarer have giant VTOL thrusters on the underside of the ship, and that's for slowing the descent or taking off vertically, like out of hangars, before tilt upward and hit the mains to gain altitude more quickly. Also, RSI ships like the Aurora and Constellation have fans, and they're currently inoperable, but they will eventually actually help those ships fly in lower atmospheres, using the thicker, more dense air to create lift. VTOL or the RSI fans, no matter where located on your ship, will be crucial to flying below the fire line, especially for less aerodynamic or massive ships trying to descend or lift off. They'll play big into the new model. And yes, we'll be able to switch to VTOL mode without having to switch to landing mode and drop our landing gear. Yes! VTOL landing mode and VTOL mode will be separated for us. I'm happy about that. By the way, non-capital ships could also become so heavy that they cannot escape atmosphere or even lift off. In the future, we'll need to heed the many warnings planned for us from our HUD or at the kiosks we purchase from. Heed those warnings before we overladen our ship with too much cargo and can't take off. So going back to capital ships, they're designed to stay relatively still when in combat, rather than dancing about like fighters. So when you move a cap ship, it will be with intent. With the implementation of the new flight model physics, Gravlevs just stopped working. Consequently, we got lucky. Gravlev flight is getting a total overhaul. The devs admitted that the old Gravlev model felt too disconnected from the ground, basically floating over the surface just like any other ship. And you rarely had to make choices of how to get around or over obstacles. I mean, I know that I just flew over them, like as if I was racing my M50 really close to the ground. Pull up, avoid rock. The new goal is to have your bike interact with the ground more, so you can feel the terrain below you, causing you to choose your navigation path on the fly. Like weighing the risk of saving time taking the straight and bumpy path versus the safer, longer route, dodging rocks scattered about. The Gravlev plates will feel the friction from the terrain below you and make thrust adjustments to maintain hover height over uneven terrain. And it's going to send that feel to the pilot with more reliable responses than we've had before. This is all aimed at helping us navigate, all while creating a more fun and immersive Gravlev flight experience. In fact, the inspiration came from jet skis, floating semi-submerged in water. So, when we fly our bikes in atmosphere, post 3.5 PU, we should be able to feel something akin to boating as we glide across the surface, learning to control the friction feedback that we're going to get from our Gravlev plates. More responsive to the terrain, navigation decision catalyst? Yes, I see more opportunity for racing than ever before. Maybe now more citizens will actually show up for the scramble races once this new flight model drops. I'm crossing fingers. So for Gravlevs, more changes are coming than just implementing the new flight model. And frankly, Gravlev bikes have never really felt like what I had imagined them to feel like back when I pledged for those concept JPEGs. Jet skis sounds way more like what I was expecting, floating over the surface yet still feeling some of the terrain below me. That sounds way more fun and grounded than those ornery ponies we ride today. So I'm on board with this jet ski feel experiment. Toss me a life vest. I'm going in. Throw in a new ESP that works and I'd be even happier. Of course, we're going to have to test the new ESP before we can even start to give feedback on it. I would like to see if it can help keep crosshairs on target. So I'm looking forward to trying out the new ESP. In fact, so far with what CIG has revealed, despite my natural skepticism, I am optimistic, mainly because they're listening to our feedback. Dollars talk, y'all. And because we're getting a whole new system from which to integrate these ship items, feel more unique flight behaviors, and it can all be edited in engine based on the next round of our feedback. That's what I'm excited about. That ship editor tool is the key, my friends. What are your thoughts? Did your opinion of what ships will do well in upper atmosphere change? How about in lower atmosphere? Tell us in the comments below which ships you think will dominate a particular type of environment and become known as deadly. Hey, do we have any real-life pilots out there? If so, take us to Top Gun Flight School in the comments below. Teach us. Let's exchange some knowledge. Danger Zone. If you enjoyed this series or took away some information that made you think, yeah, I need to remember that when this new flight model drops, then return the favor and target that like button. Light it up like a pirate caterpillar so YouTube will recommend this video to other citizens who haven't found us yet. Double check to make sure you are subscribed, and I'll be looking for you in the verse.